Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to one of the final sessions of BID 2023, very dynamic BID 2023. So congratulations to the team that's put all of this together. I know how much work it has been. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about workforce development and recruitment and a day in the life of working at BARDA with our very amazing, dynamic workforce. And so I am going to be co-moderating this session with my colleague, Ms. Felicia Harris.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for coming out and welcome to BARDA 2023.
So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I am the branch chief of BARDA's Workforce Operations Branch, which runs out of our Office of the Director. And we do a lot of work that touches just about every federal employee at BARDA. So we start with the recruitment process with our hiring managers and division directors. We then work with the people who are coming into BARDA, our new employees, bringing them through our somewhat complicated human resource process that we work very hard to make more efficient also every day. And once we do have a staff member on, when someone becomes a BARDA Fed, we support them throughout their sort of life cycle of working at BARDA. So if there is any issue or concern that they may have, we work with them very closely to make sure they have, all the things that they need to be successful in their positions and in their work, even down to where they actually physically work if they choose to come into our workspace. So lots involved in that. And I'll let Felicia talk a little bit about how she supports our contract staff.
Again, thank you, and this is a wonderful opportunity to talk about not only our contracting staff, we also have a wonderful fellowship opportunity within BARDA. I myself have been with BARDA for 15 years, and I have watched this organization grow dynamically. So we're going to speak on that. We have a wonderful panel here, and we're going to go ahead and get started.
Sure. Okay, so we are a part of the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, and ASPR's mission is to assist the country in preparing for, responding to, and recovering from public health emergencies and disasters. I know I don't need to tell you guys that because we have been here at BARDA Industry Day, and a lot of what we've talked about is how BARDA supports ASPR's mission overall. But BARDA employees really work very closely within ASPR, with ASPR employees, and a lot of the administrative and operational stuff that we do is kind of starts in our ASPR, with our ASPR colleagues. So we work with our Office of Human Capital, we work with ASPR Finance. There are lots of areas of our operational support that start directly with ASPR. And so our employees work very closely with them, as does my team in the Workforce Operations Branch.
And I know you all have seen this slide today, yesterday, a million times, the BARDA model. BARDA is the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority. But specifically for this panel, we are going to describe the day in the life of our contract and federal employees. We're going to share BARDA experiences, and we're going to allow the opportunity for you guys to engage with those that work here at BARDA. Most importantly, we want to promote BARDA's dynamic workplace. So if you have any questions, please be sure to ask.
All right, so talking a little bit about BARDA, just very briefly, because as I know we've been talking about it a lot, we have 9 divisions, and all of them over the last 4 years have grown extensively. When I started at BARDA, it was December of 2019, so right before everything kind of took off, and there were approximately about 100 BARDA federal employees and maybe 50 or 60 BARDA contract employees, and they worked throughout all of our divisions. We had 2 pretty large ones, which remain very large, CBRN and our CMA contracts division. But now we have seen growth that we have quadrupled almost in size in the last 4 years, and that has created a lot of opportunities for people within BARDA, but also for us as an operations team and an administrative supportive team to really learn and grow along with this organization. So I won't list the divisions, they're up on the slide, but that is one of the things that I think our workforce has really just constantly, we've been experiencing almost constant growth in the last 4 years. So there's been a lot of people coming in. We've had a few people that have grown and gone outside into industry, and so that has created a lot of opportunity. And so Felicia works with our fellows. A lot of our fellows have been converted to federal positions. We've converted a lot of contractors into federal positions, and we continue to look for opportunities to do that.
Within all those offices in BARDA, we have our dynamic workforce. So we have the scientific and engineers, which includes our overrides fellows, and this year is our first year having a AAAS fellow. We have clinician and data scientists, contracting professionals, regulatory and quality specialists, administrative and operations, and public health and program analysts. This consists of not just federal employees, but this includes contract employees as well.
So one of the best things about BARDA, having worked at a lot of different federal agencies, is that our federal and our contract employees work together almost seamlessly. There is very little difference. Once you are brought on board and you are part of the BARDA family, we treat our employees very equally, and they work together hand in hand. And to be honest, I don't think BARDA could have been as successful without such a strong partnership between our federal employees and our contract employees. So our contract employees bring unique experience and industry experience, and sometimes expertise that we are not able to obtain on the general schedule. And conversely, our federal employees, who we do take, as I've already mentioned, through a fairly rigorous process to get in the door. Once they are here, we really try to make sure they have all of the support, all of the things that they need to be successful, which, you know, because of what we do, sometimes it's very different. People come to us from the private sector and they don't necessarily understand some of the distinctions between federal employment and working in the private sector. And so we have to do some work to make sure that they understand that. And of course, we also do work to try to make that transition as seamless as possible. Sometimes we do a really great job of it. Sometimes it's a little clunky, but I will say that myself and my team work on it every day. So we're always trying to make everything work together for the greater good of all of BARDA employees. Felicia, would you like to say anything about contract employees?
Well, our contract employees have grown extensively. So when I started this program, we had about 100 contractors, and now we have 100 and about 276 contractors on board, including our ORISE fellows. So that speaks on the work that they've done for COVID specifically. I would like to, I'd be remiss if I did not mention our vendors, Booz Allen, Tennell, Drodex, all of them. They play a really valuable part in BARDA. I think I'm going to go into the panel. So without further ado, I'm going to go into the panel so they can talk about their experience at BARDA. I'm sorry. Okay. And we're going to introduce them as listed. So we'll start with Sarah.
I get to go first. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Aulisa, and I am a Booz Allen Hamilton contractor supporting BARDA. I sit in the Division of Non-Clinical Development in the Data Operations branch and have been supporting as a data analyst for a little over a year and a half. For some context, I think it's important to note that DNCD is a support services division. And so what that means is that our clients are really the program divisions at BARDA. And we provide programs with, first and foremost, our non-clinical laboratory network. And so that's a group of contracted laboratories that are poised to perform non-clinical studies as needed to push program initiatives forward. We also provide programs with non-clinical expertise and resources, as well as collaboration on any non-clinical projects or programs throughout our network at BARDA. Some additional context would be that the data operations branch I sit in, specifically within DNCD, provides end-to-end data lifecycle management services to program project coordination teams. And our main focus is to ensure that the data that's emanating from BARDA's non-clinical studies are of the highest quality and integrity and are also fit for purpose. And so all that being said, My day-to-day can really vary widely based off of the current active non-clinical contracts my branch is supporting, and then the internal initiatives that are being prioritized at that time. And so I like to kind of bucket my activities into contract support and then also any kind of internal strategic initiatives. But I would say that the largest part of my job is really supporting our non-clinical contracts. And what that looks like and some of the activities could be on-site monitoring visits, critical phase audits of studies, which could also be on-site, audits of non-clinical data, and that can either come to us intermittently during the conduct of a study or also at the end of a study. And then that data can also be reviewed either remotely or also on-site. I also perform a lot of deliverable and document review, and so that's things like protocols, final reports, data tables, data set QC, things of that nature. And so the other bucket is the internal strategic initiatives. And a really big push right now within the data operations branch is to expand the utility of our data that's generated from these contracts and try to manage BARDA's non-clinical data assets more effectively. And so part of this goal has been working to better catalog our non-clinical data through a search and rescue effort to one, find all of that data, and then to better organize and catalog it. And then we're also looking for ways to then store this data. So we've been performing market research on potential database repository solutions in the market to use in the future for non-clinical data storing and sharing and analyzing. And then another really big initiative for me personally has been becoming a subject matter expert in the non-clinical data reporting standard known as SEND, S-E-N-D, and that stands for the Standard for the Exchange of Non-Clinical Data. And that's a data standard that's required by the FDA for non-clinical submissions. So in becoming a SEND SME, I've been able to provide a lot of guidance to the CROs that are performing the SEND generation, as well as anybody here at BARDA who might need some SEND assistance or has any questions. And I'm also working with my branch chief currently to determine some internal processes and procedures that will, improve and harmonize our SEND generation and review process across our labs. So like I said, our day-to-day, or my day-to-day, can look really different depending on the ongoing projects that I'm a part of and the priority of my branch and my division at that time. But I really do love the variety, and I love being able to work on a lot of different projects at once with a lot of different project coordination teams, and things are never really boring, so that's good.
Thank you, Sarah. Katherine?
Hi, I'm Katherine Bianchi. I am a management and program analyst in the CBRN division here at BARDA. So as you probably know, it stands for chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. So we cover a wide variety of threat areas. And so I am in the director's office. So I support our different branches on any of our market research needs, identifying potential candidates for investment. So that involves a lot of scientific literature reading and research. And I also assist with business process improvements. So I would say day to day, my work looks very different and definitely keeps me on my toes.
Thank you. Jamiko?
Hi, everyone. I am Lieutenant Jamiko Cooper, and I kind of have like a different day today, and I know that my colleague to my left has the same kind of story, but I am a United States Public Health Service Officer, but here specifically at BARDA, I am a management program analyst, and I work for the Office of the BARDA Director, but I work really in the enterprise data operations. And so when we think about like our day-to-day there, we are like the train that keeps the oil and everything moving at BARDA, so we help really support all of the divisions here at BARDA and make sure that their lives are really smoothly working. And we've been working really hard on just our Office 365 capabilities and making sure that we as a BARDA staff collectively can collaborate together and really be effective. But it looks different from a day-to-day because at any moment's notice, we can answer a call for our nation, right, and really be there. And I know that it looked really different for us during COVID because we not only have this BARDA mission, but we also have our PHS mission. So sometimes while those two can always conflict, I really think that BARDA does a great job of having us as PHS officers here and how we are integrated into BARDA.
Thank you. Mark?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark DelVecchio, Senior Regulatory Affairs Analyst in the Division of Regulatory and Quality Affairs. RQA is also a support services group, and we provide the support for all of the divisions of regulatory support for all of the divisions. If you recall some of the descriptions that Tramel Faison and others have given regarding RQA, I'm in the regulatory sciences group and work with primarily with DDDI and with Drive on projects pretty much dedicated to diagnostics. My background is primarily in vitro diagnostics, and I provide all of the regulatory support and also liaise with FDA on a regular basis to ensure that the submissions that our contractors putting together are successful. I also forgot to mention I am also a contractor, a Tenell Government Services contractor, and I just wanted to I wanted to voice my agreement with the distinction between federal employees and contractors, and that there is no distinction when you're working here at BARDA. I mean, we're all in this together, and we're all part of the same big family here. So contractor or federal employee, no difference. And that's the one thing I actually love about this position. I mean, this is probably the most collegial atmosphere I've ever worked in, coming from 30 plus years in industry. Not always collaborative and collegial, but certainly that level of experience has been very beneficial working here. And my day-to-day, it varies quite a bit. I mean, there's a small number of individuals with my expertise in regulatory and quality. I'm only one of 3 who have diagnostic experience, and if you get a sense of, after, FDA went through, what was it, 425 plus diagnostic EUAs, we had a large number of those here at BARDA. I had most of them, or a large percentage of them. So, we certainly do have a lot of work. Things have slowed down significantly to a reasonable pace now. But the point is there's not a lot of individuals with in vitro diagnostic experience, and the one thing that's great about working here, not only do you get to deal with other subject matter experts who are absolutely fantastic in terms of their breadth of knowledge and their willingness to help and to work with you, but it's like I say, it's very collegial and very satisfying on a regular basis. So my day-to-day typically constitutes of attending a large number of PCT meetings, project coordination team meetings, reviewing regulatory documents, assisting individuals with regulatory strategies, navigating the regulatory waters with FDA, and one thing that my experience has helped me with is the relationship that I spent over the past 30 plus years establishing with FDA and the reviewers there, and because primarily, I mean, not only did I work on submissions, but a large part of my experience was working on either policy or regulatory science matters, which are essential because they're not just limited to submissions. They're elements that that really contribute to the success of submissions, and trying to get in FDA's head and trying to figure out what their concerns are and how to address those. So overall, for me, it's been a great experience. I've only been here for 3 years. I was lucky enough to join January 2020, so I didn't spend too much time in the non-COVID times here. And this is my first full bid, which I was very thankful to also participate in. So thank you.
Thank you. Jaison.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lieutenant Commander Jaison Eapen. I'm one of the 9 USPHS Commission Corps officers here. Thank you for having us all join here in the past 3 years. People here always ask me, what's your title at BARDA? And I feel like I've used like 12 titles here, so I'll give you a couple of them. So I'm an interdisciplinary engineer. I'm a project officer. I'm a portfolio manager, and I'm a contracting officer's representative. All that to say, I work in pharmaceutical countermeasures and infrastructure, and here we work on capacity expansion projects. But my expertise is in the last end of the bottleneck of the supply chain. So once we get drug product, we want to get it filled, finished, so packaged and tested, and then out the door. So my goal is to handle about 6 projects in that portfolio to get that fill finish capacity expanded in the country to make sure that we have that capacity. So my day-to-day is basically handling those contracts and cooperative agreements to make sure that we work with our partners to not only get what they want, but to also get what the USG wants at the end of the day.
Thank you, Jaison. Eapen.
Am I on? Okay, perfect. Hi, my name's Ethan Fritch. I'm an ORISE fellow supporting the antivirals and antitoxins branch of our CBRN division. I joined BARDA a year ago today, actually, so I'm excited to be here. My day-to-day has really changed since the fellowship is a training opportunity. So I started out shadowing our project officers and cores at the beginning, and then I've gotten all the way up to where I'm really assisting in handling some of our smallpox antivirals contracts, and I also support 2 of our newer programs under our branch. So I do everything from answering emails in the resource inbox to helping prepare modifications to contracts. It's been quite the experience. You get to see how the process of creating our BAA and easy BAA areas of interest come together to actually awarding those contracts as well. So it's been quite the breadth of experience under the fellowship, and the day-to-day really varies, but a lot of it is starting to align more with what our project officers and cores do. So, yeah.
Thank you, Eapen. Jonathan.
All right, we are back to contracting. And what I'm going to say is everything comes to contracting at some point. That's just the nature of how the federal government operates. And so, you know, I'm a branch chief over CBRN contracts, and I'm also a CO, and I've been more of a CO in the past, an agreement officer as well, CO is contracting officer. And yeah, there's a huge amount of involvement from contracting at you know, every stage of the process with everyone that's on this panel and everyone that's included in BARDA, because the contracting personnel are the people who have to obligate the funds for any award. They have to put together you know, the solicitations to put that out to have contracts in place for contractor support, and for anything that deals with any of our solicitations, so broad agency announcements or RFPs or RFQs through GSA, everything and anything under the sun. If the powers that be provide some funding to BARDA, they're coming over to the contracting office. So I've been here this stint. I've been here about 2.5 years now. I was here from 2016 to 2019 as well, and worked throughout the government. And yeah, I don't think there's much that we haven't that the contracting division doesn't touch. So we're just, if you go back to that chart, you'll see kind of the contracting division on the right-hand side, and it kind of has an alignment to all of the other program areas in order to provide all the support that's needed.
Thank you, Jonathan. And Christopher.
Okay. Excuse me. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christopher Knickerbocker, and I am a project officer in the Division of Detection, Diagnostics, and Devices Infrastructure, DDDI, and I know you've heard a couple presentations from them today. My primary role is as a core, a contract officer's representative, and I've actually worked with a number of people on this panel as well. My primary day-to-day is really juggling 4 to 5 contracts at a time and making sure that the contractors are meeting their timelines, their deliverables, et cetera. And I don't do that alone, obviously. I work with contract officers and contract specialists as their representative, but then I also work with a number of subject matter experts, as well as Mark in our QA, a lot of quality representatives, and he is stretched thin because I do work with him on quite a number of contracts. So the day-to-day can be different. One thing I did want to allude to, I came into BARDA during COVID, so times like this are actually very important because this is my first full bid, right? Last year was a little bit of a hybrid bid. So it's nice to see people. But the one thing I will say that as an employee coming in then, I kind of didn't feel alone. We were remote, but it's a great team to work with. There's a lot of communication, whether it's teams, occasionally meeting in town for lunches, dinners, et cetera. So I just want to say that's been helpful during the last 3 years. And I appreciate everyone up here and their support. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to go into the questions that we prepared for the panel, and we'll be opening the lines soon. So I'll let Rasheeda start with questions.
All right. So this is for everyone. Most of you have kind of answered this, what a day in the life is like. Would anyone like to expound on what they said about a day in the life of their employment? Okay. So then I'll go on to question 2. What education, training, work experience do you have that you feel prepared you for work at BARDA? That one I am going to direct to Mark first.
Thank you. Yeah, as I alluded to before, I have been in the in vitro diagnostic industry for over 30 years before coming to BARDA, and what really prepared me for this position was just the incredible diversity of companies I worked for, and both large and small diagnostic companies, working in departments that were either very, very well established or very, very new, and I had to establish them. Those sort of helped me get a sense, because that's basically what the makeup of, if I'm on 20 projects, 5 or 6 of them will be with very large diagnostic companies, and then there are a lot of small emerging organizations that don't have a lot of regulatory experience. So who I work with every day pretty much mirrored the type of experiences I had. And the other thing that was really important was, as I also mentioned a little bit before in my opening remarks, was working so closely with FDA on particularly policy items and regulatory strategy, and really getting close to individuals in the agency and understanding what their expectations were, and working with them on on guidance documents and things of that nature. So, and I think the sort of the fabric of my experience very much emulates what I do on a day-to-day basis and the types of individuals I work with, and that's been very, very helpful in being able to assist individuals and understand where they're coming from, depending on the level of experience they have in the regulatory space. Because for some people, it's really a challenge. It's their first foray into the regulated space, and that could be very challenging. So that's been very helpful.
Thank you. Jamiko, as a PHS officer, I'm sure you've had a lot of diverse experiences. Can you talk a little bit about how those have helped you at BARDA?
Yeah, so I have like a unique situation where I have my Master's of Health Administration, so really working on being like I was a health service officer in the Air Force before joining PHS. But one of the things I was afforded the opportunity several years ago was working on data analytics, right? And getting into the back end of really logistical things. During COVID, it was really paramount when we worked with the CDC with the logistical nature and automating things. So I realized that I had a really great interest in automation and making sure that I can then take your step process that took you 2 days, 3 days, a week. I could automate the process, whether that is on an Excel spreadsheet or doing something on the back end of a database, and really turning that into a flip of the switch so you don't have to do it anymore. So that spreadsheet that you hate to update every week, every month, I was able to do that, and it was like a click of a button on the back end from automation, right, and from data analytics. And it was really important when I was selected for joining the PHS Corps that they were looking for someone with data analytics experience. And so being able to work at BARDA, being able to merge both of those passions together has been really, really great.
Thank you. And I can testify because you have done some of that wonderful magic for my team. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back to Felicia.
So for our staff, we want to ask them, what advice would you give someone to applying to a federal or contract position at BARDA? I'm going to start with Christopher.
Okay, I think this is on. Okay, thank you. I think the first thing I would say is be patient. It can be and yeah, it kind of is a little bit funny but tongue in cheek, but it is a long process, and you may be talking to a large number of people in different areas and having many different discussions, and it can get frustrating along the way. But I think you have to realize that they want to make sure that, one, you're a good fit as well as they're a good fit as well. You need to be sure before you kind of jump in to that. Now, my perspective is I actually worked in private industry for 20 plus years, and so this is my first foray into government. So I kind of worked on the other side of the table where I was working on government contracts, and so now I'm on the other side. So at least I have that understanding, and I had a little bit of knowledge going into the interview process of what to expect. So again, my main thing would just be, be patient, and perhaps even attend meetings like this too, as many as you can, government meetings, talk to government employees, federal employees, contractors, and find out what their experience is and what they went through, and you can actually use that as you are applying for federal positions or contract positions.
Thank you, Christopher. Networking plays a very valuable role at BARDA. You learn a lot from BARDA Industry Day. You meet someone, and then it turns out people come and work at BARDA because they came to BARDA Industry Day. So definitely network. Sarah, what about you?
So there's really more than one way you can get your foot in the door at BARDA. You can come in as a Fed by applying to a job listing on USA Jobs, which may be a little bit more straightforward than coming in as a contractor through a contracting firm, which is the other pathway and the one that I've personally taken. And so for a contractor, each contracting firm operates a little bit differently. I work for Booz Allen Hamilton, like I said before, where there's really two ways that you could get your foot in the door on a BARDA contract, and that's either internally or externally. So internally would be where you're already working for the firm, and a position opens up on a BARDA contract that aligns with your skills, your expertise, and your training, and so then you're able to be brought onto the contract after initial screenings and interviews. But the other pathway would be externally, which is the way that I came into BARDA. And that's where a position on the BARDA, a position on the BARDA contract opens up. However, there's no real internal candidate at the firm that meets those job requirements. And this would typically be for those job listings with really niche requirements that may be more difficult to find a candidate. And so the firm would then put out an external job listing to websites like LinkedIn or Indeed, and they'll take external candidates and we'll interview them first internally, and then if the candidate passes an initial screening, they'll set up that meet and greet with the BARDA client, and things will kind of go from there, where you'll be brought into the firm to specifically work for that contract. So all that said, the advice I would give out to somebody who was potentially wanting to come into BARDA as a contractor would be to pay attention to the companies that already have a contract with BARDA. Keep an eye out for any job listings from those companies or those firms that may align with BARDA's mission or that sound interesting to you, because it's likely those job listings won't directly indicate BARDA as a client. So keep an eye out for some of those buzzwords like medical countermeasures or CBER and things of that nature. But it's also important to note that you might not get on a BARDA contract right away, and like was said before, be patient. But it will really help you to internally network within the firm and just try to gain the right experience on different projects and contracts to really push you towards meeting those BARDA requirements as positions open up on the contract. Some additional advice that was kind of already alluded to was, as you meet people across bid, connect with them and try to maintain those relationships. I think we all know this by now, but maintaining and leveraging your network and connections is so important, and that's especially true at larger firms where the candidate pool is just so much larger. So as opportunities open up, you're really at the front of people's minds, and it's particularly the hiring managers and the people who are actually screening the candidates. The last piece of advice I would say would be to make sure that your resume speaks to your medical countermeasure experience. Show that you have knowledge of BARDA's mission space. Convey interest and passion. It's really important in this line of work. Include those buzzwords that align with BARDA's mission and with the job listing in your resume, but also in interviews. And it's really specific to each contractor, depending on the contracting firm you're working for, the positions that are open on BARDA, and the expertise and training that you bring to the table. But if you want to learn more about being a contractor at BARDA, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you. Our next question would be, what about your job challenges you? And I would like to go to Katherine for that one.
Hi, so as I stated earlier, I support the 6 different branches within the CBRN division. So within the branches, there's a lot of different topics to focus on. So while it's great to be able to learn about all these different topics, it's also challenging because you have to kind of prioritize what exactly you want to focus on. But yeah, I would say that that's challenging.
Thank you. Jaison?
So, as an engineer, we embrace challenges. That's kind of what we do. But I never expected when I came to BARDA I would be faced with so many challenges, but in a good way. We came here in the midst of COVID, about 2021, a bunch of us officers, and we were thrown into working with the JPEO to get some cooperative agreements with some much needed capacity building. One of the most challenging things that we did this year was to transition those contracts over to BARDA, or those cooperative agreements as grants, and we officially completed that process, which was the most daunting task of my life. I'm an engineer, but I'm now a bankruptcy court expert. So if you need me to go to bankruptcy court with you, please let me know. Some other things is we just generally don't know what the day-to-day operations are going to be like. I was part of the MPOX task force here at BARDA. I was the facility readiness lead. But what the challenging part about that was during that response, my branch chief decided to take a detail in another office. So I basically had to help her fill in for a lot of the core duties and all the other work that she was handling so we can maintain the operations of the branch. So every day here as an engineer is a challenge. I would say, even though our titles are one thing, like I said before, we do 10, 12, 13 different things.
Thank you, Jaison. Mark, do you have anything you want to add?
Just to expand on that a little bit, the challenge is truly the sheer volume of work at times. I mean, COVID obviously was an exceptional situation, but I was involved in over 30 projects at one point, and although there were a lot of similarities between them, there were a lot of differences, and as was said earlier, just sometimes the level of detail that you have to really maintain to try to assist, and working with FDA, especially during COVID, had its challenges because things were evolving very quickly, but that's expected. I mean, it's a challenge that you embrace. I mean, to some extent, and try to clarify it with, try to explain it to individuals who are trying to interpret, how FDA is providing guidance and the fact that it changes all the time. But so you have the combination of a large number of very specific details that you have to deal with on a regular basis, and then you have evolving regulatory requirements, and all of that together can be quite daunting at times. But although I am not an engineer, I live for challenges as well.
Thank you for that. And while there's a large amount of challenges here, there's opportunity and growth. So definitely want to come to BARDA if you want to be challenged, but you want to grow. The next question we have is, how do you interact with other people on the panel? I'll start with Jonathan, since he is the glue of contracts.
Thank you. So, the way I see it is, each division kind of makes up a different organ of a person. Maybe the OD is the brain, and some other critical organ is CBRN and DDI and all these other. And probably like the circulatory system is contracting. Like nothing happens without contracting. So it's kind of like as everything else is, it's just a critical piece that touches everything and it interacts with everyone at every level. Like so, every division and has requirements that they need to satisfy, and so they're going to work with contracting in order to make sure that we are able to make award contract. We're going to think at a strategic level, at a higher level, with management about new and exciting contracting methods like the consortia OTAs that we have discussed over the last few days. So there's just there's kind of there's always an input from contracting that is there and kind of necessary in order to have operations function. And so I would just say that interaction is ever present. So if they, if someone else from a program office has a lot of requirements that need to get done, that comes over to contracting too. So we'll handle everything that gets kind of thrown at us and kind of be in that same challenging atmosphere. But I will emphasize that working at BARDA is a great experience because you do feel a great level of camaraderie with the other divisions in order to achieve that mission.
Thank you. Eapen?
So, although I haven't worked with many people on the panel, I work with a bunch of people in the groups that they belong to. One thing about BARDA is like our cross collaboration and the people that we work with make each other's lives so much easier. For example, like the RQA group. Without their help, I would not know which direction to take a BSL-1 versus a BSL-2 drug process facility and if it's actually going to pass an FDA inspection. The LT to my right, she's my mentee. So I'm tasked with actually guiding her career in the right path. The contracts group. So there's a contract with the flu group that we work with. So it's a cross collaboration between the flu group, contracts, us. There's a specific fill finish line in that contract, and I'm one of the project managers on that. So we have a whole bunch of people here in a panel. We work so cross collaboratively, and the best part about being at BARDA is that we make all these connections, and without each other's help, we wouldn't accomplish the mission. So each one of us plays, even if it's a tiny slice of the pie, you still need each piece to make a pizza pie.
Yeah, so I think that touched really well about how cross-functional BARDA is, and I would say as an ORISE fellow, it really plays into that. You get to interact with project officers, SMEs, our contract officers, and that has been the experience in the fellowship. So you really get a good breadth of idea of what it is actually like to work in BARDA and to potentially work as a federal employee. And you get to work with the program analysts to work on some of our more internal initiatives to start push forward and actually fulfill those requirements. So yeah, I would just repeat what they had said.
All right. So, what is your favorite aspect of working at BARDA? Lots going on, but what's the best part?
I can start with that one.
Thank you.
I love this question because there's so many things I love about working at BARDA, and it was really cliche. But I think something that really stands out to me, and that's kind of been alluded to on this panel already, is that being a contractor at BARDA doesn't mean that you're not a part of the team. There's obviously contractual and policy constraints, and for example, I can't direct government funds, But I'm still able to provide my guidance and my opinions, and then the federal contract managers can use that information to make decisions on the contracts as they see fit. And this is really important to me because I've worked at places before where I was a contractor and I wasn't given as many opportunities because I was a contractor. But here at BARDA, I feel like I'm given opportunities that really reflect my experience. My experience and my expertise, which makes me feel like my contributions actually mean something, regardless of whether I'm a contractor or a Fed. Another thing I really love is that the division I sit in is a support services division, and so that means that we get to work across many different teams with people all across BARDA and all across our wonderful CROs, and with just about every programmatic division. And so that's given me a ton of exposure to the different CBRN threat areas, which has been super interesting, and it's just given me an unbelievable amount of experience in my short year and a half that I've been here. But I think it's also really important to mention how impactful it is to work for an organization, or I should say with an organization, such as BARDA, whose goal is to really protect civilians from high consequence threats. And I feel a lot of pride working for BARDA and working in such a significant, impactful mission space. And then the last thing I love is the people I work with. Everybody on my team brings so much to the table, and I've learned so much from the SMEs on my team, and everybody's super inviting and collaborative, and just fun to be around. And the leadership within my division and my branch and BARDA as a whole are so encouraging and supportive, and really want to see their team succeed and each individual within their team succeed. And I work remotely, but I just love the opportunity to come into the offices here in DC or go on site to a CRO together. And just spend time with my team in person. We just mesh really well, and we have such a great time together. And I really feel like you produce your best work when you're working with a team that you appreciate and respect. And I definitely feel that appreciation and respect for and from my team.
Wonderful. Ethan.
So I joined BARDA directly out of my PhD, actually. I think I waited about a week in between. But it was a little daunting looking at joining the government because you don't really know what to expect. But I will have to say that everybody is just so friendly and willing to answer any questions you might have, that it is an excellent place to do a training postdoctoral fellowship. And I struggled a bit near the end of my PhD of not seeing kind of the translational work to, I'm working on drug screening against coronaviruses, which was very topical, but it didn't feel like we were making an impact and actually making it to any clinically relevant items. And I feel like from BARDA, you get the full breadth of the product development experience, which is just an incredibly valuable lesson, and also just experience from being able to start from your PhD to being able to go directly into complete product development, where you are actually making products reach the licensure and actually make it into the clinic to save people's lives, which is just incredible. So yeah, I would say that's probably my favorite part about working at BARDA.
Great. We're getting down to the end of our session, so we want to give everyone in the room and those that have joined us virtually an opportunity to ask any questions they may have. Are there any questions from anyone in the room? Dr. Lambert?
So first and foremost, thank you all for being part of this panel. It's been incredibly helpful. I think the people who are in the room and watching online will find a lot of value in your guidance and your experience. So we've heard a lot about the experience that you bring, and I'm curious if you can comment, if somebody has just come out of a undergraduate degree and is interested in a career path in the federal government, what are the options available to them?
Does anyone from our panel want to answer?
I can answer that. So as you know, I'm a little bit on the younger side, so I might be better suited for this. But so I don't have a graduate degree. I only have an undergrad degree, and I started working in the federal government right after college. And working at BARDA has been amazing. It's been an incredible learning opportunity. And as Ethan said, you get to watch a potential product become a product. So I think that's really valuable. I think working for the government, it's very purpose-driven, it's mission-driven, and you'll feel that, I think, if you join the government. So I think that's nice. I also think it's very intellectually stimulating, which you might not necessarily think, but it's great if you are willing to learn and want to learn from people with decades of experience as well. And so you can apply to an ORISE fellowship. So ORISE fellowships are open to undergrads, but they're also open to students who have graduate degrees or used to be students. So that's one avenue, but also there are other positions such as my position, which is a management and program analyst. So that's another route as well.
Are there any other questions from the audience? We've got one right there.
Hello, thanks for a great panel. My name is Chelsea Boudou. I'm also an ORISE fellow. So I was wondering, are there any things that you recommend that we can, I guess, volunteer in? I'm for example, in Women in BARDA with Katherine, but I don't know if there are other good opportunities to get to know people outside of my branch. So I'm in Drive in the launch office. Thank you.
Anyone on the panel want to address that? Thank you, Ethan.
Yeah. We recently had some like cross-BARDA initiatives that were launched, and those were actually excellent ways for me to meet people from the Influenza and Emerging Infectious Diseases Division, but also our Division of Research Innovations and Ventures, which you're another RISE fellow in. And you can also just ask your technical monitor for those opportunities as well, and they might be able to link you up with other areas that you might be interested in shadowing or learning about. So, for example, I don't really interact too much with the pharmaceuticals support services, but if I were interested in that, I could ask my technical monitor, and they might be able to have a good point of contact to reach out to.
Jaison?
So as one of the newer new hires here at BARDA, I learned to realize that a bunch of us love talking about what we do. So if you ever see us in the hall, you see us on Teams, you see a little green next to Jaison Eapen, feel free to send me a little Teams message, and I can either let you see what I'm doing for the day or learn the life of Jaison Eapen or my boss, Joe Figlio, or anything like that. So feel free to just reach out to people. People here at BARDA love talking about what they do.
Good suggestion. Anyone else on the panel want to respond? Okay. No.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on our panel today. So I was wondering about career growth. So you all are in your current positions now, but perhaps you started off in another place and have grown to a different position, or perhaps you know of other opportunities for advancement. So if the panel members could speak to that.
Jaison?
So I've had like a long winding career so far. I started my career at Merck. I worked there for a couple of years before I joined the FDA. I was a foreign investigator. I didn't even know what BARDA was at that point. I was doing these foreign inspections, and then COVID happened, and then said no more foreign work. That took away my job. Luckily, literally the same week that they shut down foreign operations, this magical engineer opening happened at BARDA. So then I came here and applied to BARDA, and honestly, I've never looked back since I got here. And there's so much opportunity for growth here, so many volunteering opportunities. Rasheeda sends us emails all the time of volunteering for presentations at ORISE, mentorships. We're also eligible for a bunch of leadership development courses. So if you're interested in continuing your growth, there's plenty of opportunities here. BARDA is pretty much the only place where I worked in my career where you'll get a Friday email on what's going on, and you get major updates on how you can be a better project officer, or a better core, or a better person. So there's plenty of career opportunities here and career growth opportunities.
John, did you want to add something?
Yeah. So from a contracting professional perspective, the series, the 1102 series, is very broad in its application across all of government agencies. Every government agency needs contracting professionals. And so there's always positions open. And people kind of move in and out of different agencies. And so that means that there's always opportunities available at BARDA for contracting professionals as well. And those can be seen on USA Jobs by just searching 1102 or searching ASPR or searching BARDA and finding those.
Thank you, guys. I also want to encourage everyone who may be interested in coming to join us at BARDA to please look at our Working at BARDA page. We have a link that is up, and we also, it's on mcm.gov. So we are working very hard to make sure that we are putting opportunities out there, vacancy announcements. Felicia is working on our fellowships and our contract positions. We have lots of ways for you to get in the door. And so if you're an administrative or operations professional, an acquisitions professional, someone who is, fresh out of their PhD program, we are absolutely looking for you. We have vacancies, we're hiring. My emails that Jaison referenced start with BARDA is hiring. I've been sending that message for 4 years because BARDA is hiring. So we're definitely interested in you guys. So please reach out to us. We're on social media now, which is great. Shout out to the BARDA communications team who posts all of our positions on LinkedIn and Instagram. And so if you are following us, you will know when we are putting something out there, and we are working on announcements and putting ourselves out there to bring in a new crop of BARDA talent. So thank you, guys.
Do we have any questions online? Oh, another question.
So for the 1102 contracting series, what are the qualifications for someone who wants to start in that series?
Sure. Well, sure. So that is more of a complex question than you may be aware of. We are having a change in certification that's going on now. We used to have a FAC-C level 1, level 2, level 3 certification, and that was dependent on GS level. Now we're moving to a one-year model. It's called the FAC-CP, or FAC-P, and that certification is being implemented later this year, I believe, fully, and has kind of been flowed down to all the contracting professionals within the DoD and civilian agency 1102 community. So that's part of it, but I would also say that it can be dependent based on the announcement that's issued on USA Jobs. So different agencies have different requirements, and that you could have a scenario in which, depending on the GS level, that requirement changes. That happens a lot. So if you're hiring at a lower grade GS level and entry level, then that's seen more as a developmental position. And you wouldn't expect a person to have be fully certified there. At the increased levels, 13, 14, 15, yes, we do have some rules around having a certain certification at that time.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask the last question, which is, what is your proudest achievement at BARDA? I'm going to speak on it first. As someone who's been with BARDA, again, 15 years, I started at BARDA as a contractor, as an admin. So my career has flourished at BARDA. So there's definitely no limits here. And I will ask Jamiko the same question.
So I'm also new. I just joined the Public Health Service Corps and BARDA in March. And one thing I will say, being here in the government space, BARDA is definitely leading the charge on a couple of things. And this year, I was recently selected for ASPR's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Leadership Council. And when we look across ASPR as a whole and how we look at things, because I steer the policy committee, BARDA is leading the charge on how we have diverse hiring processes, how we integrate just being diverse and inclusive in every aspect of being a BARDA employee. We have BARDA All Hands, where our communication is always really, really, really streamlined. And that's something that you don't really see often, right? From the leadership down, from Gary to Dr. Lambert, they're always open about communication. So leading those efforts within our DLC committee has been awesome, and I know that Katherine is also on Women at BARDA, which is our new employee resource group, which is giving people a space to feel included as well. Like if you're a remote employee, there's opportunities for you to connect. So I know that question was asked as well. I'm a remote employee in Atlanta, so I feel like I'm always connected. And I think that just speaks to the great work that we're doing outside of just our regular regulatory BARDA mission.
Thank you, Jamiko. And that concludes our panel today. We'd like to thank you guys for coming out, and we appreciate you. If you would like to reach out to me for staff and support services, my name is Felicia Harris, felicia.harris@hhs.gov. You can also reach out to Rasheeda and our wonderful panelists, and we thank you guys for coming out.